the quiet knowing that arises when the mind becomes still. Listening to it is an act of awareness, an act of remembering your inner truth. When you live in awareness, you stop being afraid of your reflection. You stop needing to hide behind personas or achievements. You can meet your shadow with understanding and your light with humility. You realize that both belong to you. The mirror of self-awareness becomes your teacher, your guide, and your friend. Gradually, your vision changes. You begin to see the same mirror in others. You see their fears behind their anger, their wounds behind their masks. Compassion replaces judgment. Because now you understand, you've seen it within yourself. You've realized that every human being is a mix of shadows and light, all striving to find balance. So, look again into that inner mirror. Don't turn away when the reflection challenges you. Breathe, stay still, and watch. Because everything you've ever sought, peace, purpose, authenticity, lives within that reflection. Awareness is the light that guides you toward it. The mirror will not lie, but it will set you free. It shows you that your shadow is not your enemy and your light is not yours. Yet beneath those ideals live the emotions we've learned to bury: anger, jealousy, shame, grief, and fear. Society calls them negative, but Jung understood something profound. Every emotion, even the dark ones, serves a function. Anger shows where our boundaries have been crossed. Jealousy reveals what we desire, but deny ourselves. Fear teaches us where our faith is missing. Shame points to the parts of us that need compassion. Every dark feeling carries a message, and acceptance is how we begin to listen. To accept yourself is to become whole again. It is to stop dividing your soul into pieces labeled good and bad. It is to remember that even your wounds are sacred because they hold the story of how you survived. When we finally stop running from our pain, we realize that pain was never the enemy. Resistance was. Imagine carrying a heavy stone for years, believing it protects you from judgment. That stone is your denial, your rejection of self. The moment you put it down, the moment you say, "This is who I am, imperfect and evolving," you feel lighter, freer. Nothing outside you needs to change for you to experience peace. Acceptance begins inside. Many people confuse acceptance with passivity, as if to accept means to give up. But that's not true. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from truth, not illusion. You can't change what you refuse to face. You can't heal what you won't acknowledge. Acceptance opens the door to genuine transformation, because it roots you in reality. Think of a tree. A tree does not resist the seasons. It accepts the heat, the cold, the rain, and the wind. Its strength comes from its ability to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing its essence. That is the power of acceptance. It makes you flexible in the storms of life. It gives you grace to remain grounded even when circumstances shift. When you accept yourself, you also stop seeking constant approval from others, because you realize that your worth was never dependent on perfection. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be whole. Acceptance allows you to stand in your truth without apology. You begin to understand that you can be both confident and uncertain, both strong and vulnerable, both light and shadow, all at once. Carl Jung said, "I would rather be whole than good." This is the essence of accepting. Goodness is often a performance, a mask we wear to fit in. Wholeness is authenticity, the willingness to be real even when it's uncomfortable. When you accept your contradictions, you stop living in inner conflict. The war between who you are and who you think you should be finally ends. But this process takes time. Acceptance is not a single moment of revelation. It is a daily practice of compassion. Every time you catch yourself judging your feelings, take a breath and say, "It's okay that I feel this way." Every time you fall back into old habits, remind yourself, "I'm learning." Every time you fail, say, "I can begin again." This is how healing happens, not through perfection, but through patience. As you practice acceptance, you will begin to notice something subtle yet powerful. The energy you once used to hide, defend, and justify yourself becomes available for growth, creativity, and love. You stop wasting your life trying to prove your worth and start living from it. You begin to understand that the very things you once rejected in yourself were often sources of hidden wisdom. For instance, the part of you that feels anger might hold your lost power, the ability to say no, to set boundaries, to protect your peace. The part of you that feels envy may carry your unexpressed potential, the dreams you've suppressed because of fear. The part that feels sadness may carry deep empathy and connection. When you stop labeling these emotions as wrong, they reveal their true purpose. Acceptance turns pain into guidance. Through this lens, even mistakes become teachers. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to show me?" Acceptance transforms suffering into understanding. It allows you to grow through what you go through. But perhaps the greatest gift of acceptance is peace. The quiet, unshakable peace that comes from no longer fighting yourself. When you reach this place, you no longer feel the need to impress, defend, or pretend. You no longer chase validation or approval, because you've made peace with your own reflection. You can finally sit in silence without discomfort, because the voice inside your head has softened. It no longer shouts with criticism, it speaks with compassion. You can forgive your past self for not knowing better, honor your present self for trying, and trust your future self. Continue evolving. This is what balance begins to feel like. Not a constant happiness, but a calm acceptance of life as it is. Light and shadow, success and failure, joy and sorrow, all of it belongs. And when you see that, you stop trying to control everything. You begin to flow with life, rather than against it. Acceptance is not an end, it is a bridge. A bridge that connects awareness to integration. It's the moment when knowledge turns into wisdom, when you stop analyzing your shadow and start embracing it. From here, something deeper begins to happen. Your divided parts start to merge. Your inner voice becomes more harmonious. You begin to experience yourself not as fragments, but as one whole being. And that brings us to the next chapter, the process of integration, the sacred marriage of opposites. Because once we accept all that we are, the next step is to unite it, to transform our shadow and light into one harmonious soul. Once awareness opens your eyes and acceptance softens your heart, you arrive at the most profound part of the journey, integration. This is where everything you have seen and embraced must now be united. It is the moment when your understanding transforms into embodiment, when your insight becomes your way of being. Integration is not a concept, it's a lived experience. It is the sacred marriage between shadow and light, the union of what you feared and what you loved. Jung called this process individuation, the path toward becoming a whole and balanced human being. It is the alchemy of the soul, turning the raw, unrefined elements of your psyche into spiritual gold. To integrate your shadow doesn't mean to glorify it or to let it rule you. It means to give it a place at the table of your being. It means to say, "You are part of me, and I will learn from you." When the shadow is rejected, it rebels. When it is welcomed, it transforms. Imagine your inner world as a vast landscape. Some parts are covered in sunlight, your confidence, compassion, and creativity. Others lie hidden in darkness, your fears, anger, and shame. Integration is like opening the windows between these two worlds, and allowing the air to flow freely. The light enters the dark, and the dark gives depth to the light. You begin to feel a sense of inner harmony, not because you've erased your darkness, but because you've given it meaning. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Integration requires courage because it asks you to hold contradictions within yourself. It asks you to see that you can be both gentle and strong, both kind and firm, both certain and uncertain. For most of us, this is difficult because the ego prefers simplicity. It wants to say, "I am this, not that." But the soul speaks a deeper language, the language of both and. It whispers, "You are both the storm and the calm, both the question and answer." Integration dissolves the illusion of separation. It shows you that your shadow was never against you. It was a forgotten part of you calling for inclusion. When you integrate your fear, you discover courage. When you integrate your sadness, you uncover empathy. When you integrate your anger, you reclaim your power. Every dark part, once understood, becomes an ally of your growth. But this union doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually through awareness in everyday moments. You begin to notice your triggers, and instead of reacting, you respond with curiosity. When anger rises, you pause and ask, "What is this emotion protecting?" When jealousy appears, you ask, "What desire have I been denying?" These small acts of reflection are the practice of integration, moments when consciousness replaces instinct. Integration also means living your truth in the outer world. It's not enough to find peace in meditation if you lose it in conversation. Integration shows up in how you speak, how you listen, how you handle conflict, and how you love. It's when the inner harmony you've cultivated begins to shape your outer reality. You no longer live from masks or defense mechanisms. You live from authenticity. You may notice that people sense something different in you. Your presence feels more grounded, your words more sincere, your energy more stable. This is the mark of an integrated soul, a person who has made peace with their contradictions. They don't need to prove their goodness because their wholeness speaks for itself. The process of integration is also deeply creative. Many of the world's greatest artists, thinkers, and healers drew power from their shadows. They transformed pain into poetry, fear into innovation, and darkness into insight. When you integrate, your shadow becomes a wellspring of inspiration rather than a source of suffering. You begin to see that nothing inside you was ever wasted. It was all material for your becoming. Still, integration requires patience. It is not a destination, but a continuous balancing act. Some days you will feel whole, other days fragmented again, and that's okay. Growth is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You revisit the same lessons, but from deeper levels of understanding. Each time your awareness expands, your compassion deepens, and your inner light grows steadier. Think of integration as weaving a tapestry. Each thread, light or dark, contributes to the beauty of the whole design. If you remove the darker threads, the picture loses depth. If you remove the light ones, it loses clarity. Only together do they create the full image. That image is you, not the perfect you, but the real you. As you integrate, you'll begin to notice subtle shifts in your relationships. You stop projecting your shadow onto others. You no longer see enemies where there are mirrors. You begin to recognize that what triggers you in another person is often something unresolved within yourself. Instead of blame, you find understanding. Instead of judgment, you find compassion. This is how integration not only heals the individual, but transforms the world around them. Because when a person integrates their shadow, they become less reactive, less controlled by fear, and more capable of love. They stop trying to fix or change others and instead embody peace themselves. And that peace becomes contagious. It radiates silently, influencing others to seek the same balance within Integration also brings a deep humility. You realize that light and shadow will always exist within you. You stop striving for perfection and start embracing evolution. You see that enlightenment is not the absence of darkness, but the wisdom to walk with it consciously. You understand that every experience, joyful or painful, is part of your unfolding. This is the stage where duality begins to dissolve. You no longer see life as a war between good and bad, but as a dialogue between opposites that shape each other. You start to live from the center, the point of balance where both light and darkness serve the same purpose, awakening. And in that awakening, a quiet strength arises, a sense of inner authority that doesn't depend on external validation. You become your own compass, guided by an inner knowing teach. At is beyond logic. You trust yourself not because you are flawless, but because you are whole. So as you walk this path, remember, integration is the art of becoming one with yourself. It's the sacred marriage between your highest and lowest, your seen and unseen. It is where your humanity meets your divinity. When you reach this state, you no longer fear the shadow, nor do you worship the light. You simply are. You move through life with a quiet grace, knowing that everything within you has a place, a purpose, and a voice. And as this harmony takes root within, it begins to radiate outward. You become a living example of what it means to be fully human. Imperfect, evolving, whole. This is the golden middle of existence, the true balance of the human soul. And from this balance, something beautiful begins to emerge. A gentle radiance that is not born from denial, but from unity. The soul's inner light begins to awaken, shining through both shadow and grace. When you have faced your shadows, embraced your contradictions, and learned to integrate both darkness and light within yourself, something remarkable begins to happen. A new kind of light is born. Not the borrowed light of external approval or fleeting happiness, but a steady inner glow that cannot be dimmed by circumstance. This is the awakening of your inner light, the natural radiance of a soul that has made peace with itself. This light does not come from avoiding darkness, it shines through it. It emerges from the depths you once feared to enter. It is the light of consciousness, the awareness that sees without judgment, loves without condition, and lives without pretense. When this light awakens, you begin to experience life differently. You are no longer chasing wholeness. You are living it. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." True illumination, he understood, is born not from denial, but from integration. The more you understand your shadow, the brighter your awareness becomes. You are no longer split between who you are and who you pretend to be. You become one. And in that oneness, your presence itself begins to shine. The awakening of inner light is not dramatic. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It unfolds quietly like dawn breaking after a long night. It's a light you feel rather than see. A subtle sense of peace that no longer depends on things going your way. It's the realization that you can stand in the middle of chaos and still feel calm inside. This light expresses itself in small, everyday ways. In your patience when you would once have been angry. In your forgiveness when you would once have blamed. In your empathy when you would once have judged. It is not perfection, it is presence. It's being aware of your emotions without being ruled by them. It's speaking truth without needing to dominate, listening without needing to defend, loving without needing to possess. You begin to notice that your light touches others, often without words. People feel at ease around you, not because you're trying to impress them, but because your authenticity gives them permission to be real too. This is the quiet influence of an awakened soul. It doesn't convert or convince. It simply radiates truth. When the inner light awakens, the world around you begins to mirror it. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because your perception has changed. You no longer see challenges as punishments, but as opportunities to grow. You no longer label people as enemies or allies, but as reflections showing you more of yourself. Even pain becomes a teacher, a reminder that love still exists underneath it all. This light also brings clarity. You start to see through illusions, the endless chase for status, the need for control, the search for external validation. You realize that peace cannot be found in possessions or praise, it can only be found in presence. You stop chasing the next thing that promises fulfillment, because you found something far more real, yourself. The awakening of inner light doesn't mean you'll never experience darkness again. You will. Life will still challenge you, grief will still touch you, and doubt will still visit. But something has changed. The darkness no longer consumes you, because the light within you has learned to guide you through it. You begin to trust your inner compass, even when the path ahead is unclear. You no longer fear falling, because you know you can rise. This light is humility, not ego. It doesn't say, "Look how enlightened I am." It whispers, "I am learning, just like everyone else." The awakened soul understands that light and shadow are not enemies but dance partners, each defining the other, each necessary for balance. You stop striving for endless positivity and start valuing authenticity. You realize that real strength lies in vulnerability, and real love often grows from pain. Your inner light is not something you create, it's something you uncover. It has always been there, beneath the noise of fear and the masks of expectation. You find it when you sit in stillness, when you listen deeply to your heart, when you forgive yourself for the times you couldn't. It reveals itself in moments of surrender, when you stop trying to control life and simply allow it to move through you. This light also connects you to something greater than yourself. You begin to feel part of a vast, living tapestry, interconnected with every soul, every being, every breath of existence. Compassion expands beyond personal boundaries. You see yourself in others, and others in yourself. This is the birth of universal empathy, the light that recognizes the sacredness of all life. And as this awareness deepens, love becomes your natural state. Not romantic love, not conditional love, but a quiet, abiding love that simply is. You no longer need to be loved to feel love. You have become it. You carry it wherever you go. You speak with it, act with it, and move with it. It becomes the silent language of your being. This is what it means to awaken your inner light. It's not an escape from reality, but a deeper embrace of it. You stop dividing life into good and bad, success and failure, joy and sorrow. You see them all as expressions of the same whole, each with its own purpose in your evolution. The light within you helps you walk through both celebration and suffering with grace. There's a line from Jung's writings that captures this beautifully. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. When your inner light awakens, you begin to see that hidden order everywhere. You trust that even the darkest moments are leading you somewhere meaningful. You don't need all the answers because you found faith in the unfolding. And this faith gives you freedom. The freedom to live authentically, to express yourself fully, to follow your soul's truth even when it leads you away from comfort. You stop fearing the unknown, because the light inside you has become your guide. You understand that enlightenment is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of living consciously. In this state, your presence itself becomes healing. You don't have to fix others. Your energy reminds them of their own light. You don't have to prove your worth. Your stillness reflects their forgotten peace. You become a mirror of wholeness in a fragmented world. And yet, even in this light, humility remains. You know that the dance between light and shadow will continue as long as you are human. There will be days when your light dims, moments when you stumble. But now you understand. The darkness is not a failure. It's a teacher reminding you to return home, to turn inward, to remember the truth of who you are. So let your inner light shine, not as a beacon of perfection, but as a symbol of balance. Let it remind the world that wholeness is possible, that peace is not found by escaping the dark, but by embracing it. You are both shadow and light, both question and answer. And when you accept that truth fully, your soul becomes luminous, steady, compassionate, real. And from this inner light arises the final realization, the harmony of wholeness. The peace that comes not from becoming someone new, but from remembering who you've always been. Perfect. And now, after walking through the darkness, embracing your shadows, and awakening your inner light, you arrive at a quiet place, the still point between all opposites. This is the harmony of wholeness. It isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with triumph or noise. It's a deep, steady calm that settles into your being, the peace of finally belonging to yourself. For so long, you might have searched for meaning outside, in relationships, in achievements, in approval. But through this journey, you've discovered what Carl Jung always knew, that everything you sought was already within you. You were never broken. You were only unfinished, waiting to be remembered. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not the absence of struggle, fear, or pain. It's the understanding that those very experiences are the threads weaving your soul together. The shadow gave you depth, the light gave you direction, and together they created your humanity. Harmony of wholeness begins when you stop trying to cut your soul into parts. When you stop saying, this is good, this is bad, this I can love, this I must hide. You realize that every piece of you has a place, that every wound has a wisdom, and every key has a message. You stop editing your spirit and start embracing it. This acceptance gives rise to a profound freedom. The freedom to be exactly who you are, without apology or disguise. You no longer need to perform for the world. You simply exist, and in that existence there is truth. You are not trying to be light. You are simply allowing light to flow through you. You are not suppressing darkness. You are understanding it. This is the alchemy of the soul, where every experience, whether painful or joyful, becomes part of your gold. In this harmony, love changes form. It is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you radiate. You see others not as threats or saviors, but as mirrors, each reflecting a different aspect of your own being. The person who frustrates you shows your hidden impatience. The one who inspires you reveals your dormant potential. The one who wounds you awakens your capacity to forgive. Life itself becomes a dialogue between your inner and outer worlds, constantly teaching, constantly balancing. Wholeness doesn't mean you'll never fall into darkness again. It means that when you do, you'll know how to return. You'll remember that light is something you have to find. It's something that never left you. Even in your lowest moments, it flickers quietly, waiting for you to breathe, to look inward, to trust again. You begin to see that both shadow and light are sacred guides, each leading you home in their own way. In this space of balance, your perspective shifts. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to ask, what is this trying to teach me? You stop fearing endings, because you understand they are beginnings in disguise. You no longer crave certainty, because you've learned to dance with mystery. You no longer resist change, because you see that growth and loss are two sides of the same evolution. The harmony of wholeness is not static. It's a living rhythm, a constant dance between awareness and surrender, giving and receiving, being and becoming. When you align with it, life stops feeling like a battle to win and starts feeling like a melody to flow with. You begin to trust that even when the notes shift, the song remains beautiful. You also realize that this journey is not just personal. It's universal. Every soul on this earth walks through its own play of shadow and light. When you heal yourself, you help heal the collective. When you forgive your own darkness, you make space for others to forgive theirs. Your inner work ripples outward, touching hearts you may never meet, lighting paths you may never walk. Jung often spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole by uniting all parts of the self. But individuation doesn't separate you from the world. It connects you more deeply to it. When you are whole, you no longer live behind walls of fear or ego. You become part of the greater harmony, a note in the vast symphony of existence. And that symphony needs every note. The bright and the dark, the soft and the strong, the silent and the loud. Without contrast, there is no music. Without shadow, there is no light. The balance of the human soul is what makes the song of life complete. When you stand in this awareness, life no longer feels like a problem to be solved. It becomes a mystery to be lived. You find beauty in imperfection, strength in vulnerability, clarity in confusion. You begin to realize that the very things you once rejected were preparing you for this understanding, that you needed the night to appreciate the dawn. So now, as you reach the end of this inner journey, take a moment to look within, really look. Not at who you wish to be, but at who you are right now. The mistakes, the lessons, the dreams, the doubts, all of it belongs. Feel the quiet strength that comes from self-acceptance, the grace that rises when judgment fades, the peace that emerges when resistance ends. This is what Jung meant when he said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You are not defined by your past, your pain, or your shadow. You are defined by your willingness to embrace it all and still choose love. The harmony of wholeness doesn't promise an end to struggle. It promises meaning within it. It doesn't erase contrast. It gives it purpose. It doesn't demand perfection. It invites authenticity. It is the gentle knowing that everything you are is exactly as it should be. So walk forward, not as a divided being seeking completion, but as a whole soul expressing balance. Let your light shine, but let your shadow breathe. Let your joy dance, but let your sorrow rest beside it. Be human, deeply, honestly, courageously human. For in that humanity lies divinity. And when the world feels heavy again, as it will, remember this truth. Darkness is not the absence of light. It is the cradle from which light is born. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your companion, guiding you back to yourself. The balance of the human soul is not something to achieve. It's something to remember. You already are the harmony you seek. You already are the light within the shadow, the stillness within the storm, the infinite within the temporary. So breathe, return to yourself, and let your life be the living expression of this truth. Wholeness is not found by escaping the dark, but by embracing it. Peace is not found by rejecting who you were, but by loving who you are. Light and shadow are not enemies. They are one, and in their union the soul becomes free. Every human being carries two worlds within, the radiant and the obscure, the known and the hidden. We live in constant motion between them, often unaware that both are parts of a greater whole. Carl Jung once said, "The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." It's a truth that quietly shapes our lives, whether we recognize it or not. From the moment we are born, we begin building an image of ourselves, a version we believe the world will accept, love, and respect. We highlight our kindness, our strengths, our talents, and our achievements. This is the light we show the world. Yet, beneath this light, something else grows quietly, a shadow formed from everything we hide. Every unspoken fear, every unhealed wound, every emotion we were told was too much or not good enough. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply the part of us we've forgotten how to love. It's the collection of truths we've pushed away because they didn't fit into the image we wanted to maintain. We repress our anger and call ourselves peaceful. We deny our jealousy and claim contentment. We swallow our sadness and force a smile. But whatever we repress doesn't disappear. It waits patiently within the depths of our owl, whispering to be seen. The light gives us direction, but the shadow gives us depth. Without the shadow, our light becomes shallow, blinding rather than illuminating. Without light, our shadow consumes us in confusion and fear. True balance comes when we dare to stand in the middle, acknowledging both the light that uplifts us and the darkness that humbles us. We often fear the shadow because it reminds us of the parts of ourselves we don't understand. But Jung taught that the shadow is not the enemy, it's the doorway to self-knowledge. Imagine standing before a vast mirror that doesn't just reflect your appearance, but your entire being, your thoughts, motives, fears, and desires. Most of us glance into this mirror only briefly, afraid of what we might find, yet every time we avoid it, we also turn away from our own growth. Because the truth is, the shadow has something important to say. It reveals where we are wounded, where we are incomplete, and where we have the potential to grow. The anger you feel may be the shadow's way of showing you your boundaries. The sadness you suppress may be asking you to slow down and reconnect. The envy you deny may be pointing toward your unfulfilled potential. Every dark feeling, every uncomfortable impulse carries a message. If only we are willing to listen. But to listen, we must stop running from ourselves. We must sit in the silence we've avoided for so long. The silence where no distractions can hide the truth. This is where the journey of balance begins. Not with grand affirmations or endless positivity, but with honesty. The kind of honesty that strips away illusions and says, yes, this too is me. In today's world, we are encouraged to stay in the light, to be happy, successful, productive, and endlessly positive. Darkness has become taboo. We scroll past pain, filter our flaws, and hide our struggles behind curated smiles. But beneath the surface, we are still human. We still carry grief, guilt, doubt, and desire. Pretending otherwise doesn't make us whole. It fractures us. The more we run from our darkness, the more power it gains over us. The only way to free ourselves is to turn toward it. Think of the sun and the moon. Both share the same sky, yet each has its time to shine. The sun's brilliance brings life, warmth, and clarity. The moon's quiet light brings reflection, mystery, and rest. Without both, the world would lose its rhythm. The same is true for the soul. To live fully, we must allow both our inner sun and moon to coexist, to learn when to act and when to reflect, when to shine and when to retreat. Facing the shadow doesn't mean dwelling in darkness or glorifying pain. It means bringing light into the places that have been forgotten. It means saying, I see you, to the parts of ourselves that have been ignored or judged. When we do this, we begin to understand that every emotion has a purpose, every mistake carries wisdom, and every flaw hides a seed of strength. This understanding transforms how we see others too. The moment we make peace with our own shadow, we stop judging the shadows of others. Compassion grows. We begin to recognize that everyone is fighting an unseen battle, carrying light and darkness just as we do. The world softens when we see it through this balanced lens, less as a battlefield between good and evil and more as a dance between contrast and harmony. But to reach this awareness, courage is required. The courage to feel, the courage to question, the courage to explore the depths of your being even when it's uncomfortable. Jung believed that every person's destiny is to become whole, not perfect. Perfection divides us from ourselves, but wholeness unites what was once broken. When you step into this journey, you will notice that your inner world begins to shift. The parts you once feared begin to guide you. The emotions you once suppressed start to heal you. You will no longer see your darkness as a threat, but as a source of wisdom. The light will no longer blind you with false ideals, but help you navigate the complexity of your soul. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, a complete being who embraces all sides of the self. Remember, balance is not something you find once and keep forever. It's a lifelong dance. Some days your light will lead, other days your shadow will teach. Both are sacred, both belong. Together they form the rhythm of your inner life, the heartbeat of your authenticity. So as you listen now, ask yourself, what part of me have I been ignoring? What emotion keeps returning, asking to be felt? What truth have I buried beneath the weight of who I thought I should be? Because beneath every shadow lies hidden light, waiting to be reclaimed. Beneath every light lies a shadow, reminding us to stay humble. The harmony of the human soul lies in the acceptance of both, and that's where our journey begins, by stepping courageously into the truth of our own duality, not to destroy one side, but to understand both. Because only when we embrace the full spectrum of who we are can we begin to live in true balance. Is the eternal dance of shadows and light, the story of every soul seeking wholeness. When you first dare to look inward, truly inward, you stand before one of life's most powerful forces, the mirror of self-awareness. It is not a physical mirror, but a silent inner reflection that reveals who you really are beneath all appearances, masks, and roles. Most people never face this mirror for long. They glance at it briefly, then turn away, frightened by what they see. Yet this mirror holds the key to transformation. It doesn't show us who we wish to be. It shows us who we are. Self-awareness is not about perfection. It's about perception. It's about seeing yourself clearly, without distortion. To be aware is to become a witness. To watch your thoughts, emotions, and actions without immediate reaction or judgment. It's a simple act, but one that changes everything. Because when you start observing yourself, you realize how much of your life is guided by unconscious patterns, habits, fears, and beliefs that operate silently beneath the surface. Carl Jung believed that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you found yourself repeating the same mistakes, falling into the same conflicts, attracting the same pain? It feels like destiny. But what if it's simply the shadow, repeating itself because it wants to be seen? When we lack awareness, we live like sleepwalkers, reacting instead of responding, blaming instead of understanding. We move through life driven by invisible forces we don't recognize. We say we want peace, yet we feed our anger. We say we want love, yet we fear vulnerability. We say we want freedom, yet we cling to control. The mirror of self-awareness stops this cycle by showing us the truth behind these contradictions. It reveals the hidden motivations behind our choices. But standing before this mirror is not easy, because it doesn't flatter. It exposes. It doesn't lie. It reflects. You may see aspects of yourself that make you uncomfortable. Your jealousy, your pride, your fear, your need for validation. These are not flaws to be condemned, but messages to be understood. Awareness brings them to the surface so they can be transformed. What was once unconscious begins to become light. The first step is honesty. True self-awareness begins when you stop pretending, even to yourself. When you stop saying I'm fine when you're not. When you admit, yes, I'm afraid, or yes, I'm hurt. Honesty cracks the armor of denial, allowing light to enter the dark places within. And in that light you begin to see, not with judgment, but with understanding. Awareness is like holding a candle in a dark room. The candle doesn't remove the darkness all at once. It simply reveals what's there. The more you hold it, the more you see. And as you see, Fear begins to fade, because what is seen can no longer control you. What you understand loses its power to harm you. In this mirror, you begin to realize how deeply your life has been shaped by the unconscious. You see how childhood experiences, unspoken pain, and forgotten memories still echo in your present. You notice how certain people or situations trigger you, not because of what they are, but because of what they awaken inside you. Every emotional reaction becomes a clue pointing back to something unresolved within. This is where transformation begins, not in trying to change others, but in observing yourself. You start to see that awareness is freedom. When you are aware, you can pause before reacting. You can notice anger arising without being consumed by it. You can feel fear without being ruled by it. You can recognize jealousy without letting it turn into bitterness. You become a conscious participant in your own life instead of a victim of unconscious impulses. The mirror also shows you your light, your strength, resilience, and compassion. Many people focus only on their darkness when they begin this journey, but awareness reveals your hidden beauty too. It shows you the kindness that lives beneath your defenses, the creativity beneath your doubt, and the wisdom within your pain. The mirror doesn't just expose wounds, it reveals potential. It whispers, you are more than your past. You are more than your fears. And as you keep looking, something remarkable happens. The fear that once made you resist this mirror begins to fade. You realize that facing yourself is not as terrifying as you thought. It's liberating. Because what you resist controls you, but what you observe with awareness loses its grip. Still, this is not a one-time act. Self-awareness is a lifelong practice. Every day you are invited to look again, to see how your shadow and light continue to interact, to notice how ego tries to protect you by hiding your true feelings, to watch how pain disguises itself as anger or indifference. Awareness is not a destination, it's a relationship with yourself. It requires patience, gentleness, and courage. At first you may feel discomfort, because awareness burns through illusion. But that burning is sacred. It's the fire that purifies false identities and reveals the truth of who you are. The more you look, the more you understand that self-awareness is not about changing yourself. It's about knowing yourself. Change happens naturally once you truly see. In moments of silence, when the noise of the world fades, you can hear the voice of your deeper self, the one that has always been there, waiting beneath the surface. This voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It speaks through intuition, through feeling. Through mask, they are both your truth. Together they form the image of your soul. And as you keep facing that reflection with courage, you move one step closer to balance, to harmony within the human soul. Once you have looked deeply into the mirror of self-awareness, the next step is perhaps the hardest: acceptance. Awareness shows you the truth, but acceptance allows you to live with it. It is one thing to see your shadow, and another to embrace it. It is one thing to know your flaws, and another to forgive them. This is where transformation truly begins. Not in fighting what you discover, but in learning to hold it gently. Acceptance is not surrender to weakness. It is the courage to meet yourself without denial. It means saying, yes, this too is me. Not because you approve of every part of yourself, but because you understand that every part has a purpose, a story, a reason for being. What we reject within ourselves does not disappear, it hides. And what hides within us grows stronger in the dark. But when we accept it, we bring it into the light, and it loses its power to control us. We are taught to chase only our good sides, to strive to be confident, kind, successful, and STR.